So I met this guy on Bumble. Let's just start there. His name was Jake. Cute, not hot, which made me trust him more for some reason. Clean haircut, flannel shirts in all his pics, holding a dog in one, holding a fish in another, of course. He messaged first, witty, funny. Said he liked girls who could match his sarcasm, which honestly should have been my first red flag, but I've ignored worse. Anyway, we talk for a few days. He suggests dinner. Nothing fancy, just a local spot. A 24/7 kind of place out in the suburbs, 10 minutes off the highway. You know the kind. Checkerboard floors, neon sign out front, pies spinning behind a scratched glass display. I agree. I wasn't expecting much. Maybe some awkward small talk, a few fries, a weird hug in the parking lot. Instead, I got the worst first date of my life. He was already there when I pulled in. That was the first weird thing. I was 5 minutes early. I was the early one. And he was already in the booth, sipping on a Coke like he'd been waiting a while. Smiled as I walked in, stood up, hugged me. No big deal, right? But when I slid into the booth, I realized something strange. There were 2 empty glasses across from him. One still had ice in it, like someone had just left, but he said he hadn't ordered anything yet. He said, "Just got here a minute ago." The waitress came by. She was in her late 30s, maybe 40s, tired eyes, but something behind them that was sharp, alert. She looked at me for a beat too long when she took our order. He got the burger. I got the club sandwich. She didn't write anything down. Just smiled and said, "You sure about that?" while looking directly at me. I laughed awkwardly, said, "Yeah. Why?" She didn't answer. The conversation with Jake was weird, but not in a way I could explain. Like, the stuff he said wasn't wrong. He asked about my job, my siblings, if I still talked to my ex. But he had this way of asking where it felt strategic. Like every word he said was designed to get me to drop my guard. He'd go from charming to aggressive back to playful in the same sentence. Teasing me for ordering a basic sandwich 1 second, then praising my ambition the next. I couldn't pin down his energy. It was slippery. He made a joke about how girls always ghost him after the first date, and then said, "But that won't be you. You're different." He said it like a fact. The food came. The waitress didn't say anything as she set the plates down. She just made eye contact with me again. Firm, purposeful. Then she dropped a napkin next to my drink and walked away. I didn't notice it right away. Jake was going on about some conspiracy podcast he liked. Something about GPS tracking and grocery store receipts. I was barely listening. I took a sip of my water, and that's when I saw it. The napkin. Folded. Thick paper. Looked like it had been written on. I pretended to grab it to wipe my mouth. Unfolded it under the table. There were just a few words, scribbled in blue pen. "You're not safe. He comes here with a different girl every week. One went missing." My stomach dropped. I didn't react. Couldn't. I just blinked and kept chewing my sandwich like nothing happened. Jake was still talking. Something about how the media controls people's attention spans. I said, "Excuse me, I need the bathroom." He reached for my hand as I started to get up, gripped it, not hard, but deliberately, looked me in the eyes. "You okay?" I smiled, nodded. He held on for a second longer than he needed to, then let go. The second I stepped into the bathroom, I locked the door, took out my phone, opened the note again just to make sure I'd read it right. "You're not safe. He comes here with a different girl every week. One went missing." I looked at myself in the mirror and realized I was shaking. That's when I noticed the tiny window above the sink, painted shut but cracked at the edges, a way out, if I needed one. I opened my phone and texted my roommate. "If I call you in the next 5 minutes, pick up and pretend to cry." Emergency voice. Real tears. "Please." She replied instantly. "WTF? Are you okay?" I didn't answer. I just unlocked the bathroom door and walked back to the table. When I got back to the table, Jake was halfway through his burger, scrolling through his phone like nothing had happened. He looked up and smiled. "All good?" I nodded, sat down, took a slow sip of my water, heart pounding. I was just waiting for the signal, And right on cue, my phone rang. I answered, and my roommate nailed it. Sobbing, full-blown panic. I didn't even have to say much. Just widened my eyes like I was caught in the middle of some emotional crisis, muttered a few, "Oh my gods," and covered my mouth like I was shocked. Jake leaned forward. "Everything okay?" I covered the mic, shook my head. Her ex just showed up. She's at home. I have to go. I stood up quickly, grabbing my purse, but Jake stood too. "Want me to come with you?" I froze. He wasn't offering like a polite gentleman. He was volunteering himself into my car. No, it's okay," I said quickly. "She just needs me to be there." He didn't move, didn't sit back down, didn't blink. He just smiled and said, "Tell her I said hey." Then he winked. I practically sprinted to my car, didn't look back until I was already inside with the doors locked. And when I did, he was still at the window, just watching me, not waving, not pretending to pay the bill, just standing there. I started the car. That's when I saw her. The waitress. She stepped out the back door, apron off, holding a cigarette she didn't light. She nodded at me, then turned and walked to a beat-up old Civic in the employee lot. I drove straight home. Didn't speak, didn't cry, just drove. My roommate was waiting with tea and a knife. We didn't talk until morning. But the story doesn't end there, because I couldn't let it go. I couldn't stop thinking about that napkin. He comes here with a different girl every week. One went missing. I didn't know her name. Didn't even know the waitress's name. But the next day, I called the diner and asked to speak to whoever worked the night shift the night before. They said no one by that description was scheduled last night. They said the night shift server was a man named Greg. I asked if anyone had called out or switched. They told me no. I asked for the manager. He told me he didn't know what I was talking about. So I drove back to the diner. In the daylight, it looked different. Smaller, less sinister. I went inside, sat at the same booth, Jake's booth, and I waited. An older man with a greasy ponytail came to take my order. I asked him casually, "Is the blonde woman here? The one from last night?" He squinted at me. "I've worked here 6 years," he said. "We haven't had a blonde waitress since 2021. When I left, I walked around the back. The employee lot was empty, but the dumpster was open, and something caught my eye. A corner of blue paper stuck to the edge. I walked over, peeled it off. It was a napkin, same handwriting, new words. "Check the woods behind the truck stop. He keeps trophies." I knew the truck stop, about 10 minutes up the highway. So I went, parked behind the lot, waited for a lull in the traffic, slipped into the tree line when no one was looking. There wasn't much back there, just garbage, broken glass, patches of moss and weeds, until I found it. A buried box, half covered with leaves and duct tape. I dug it up with my hands. Inside were a broken silver bracelet, a girl's wallet with an expired license, a burner phone, cracked, a Polaroid photo of a girl in a diner booth. She was smiling, but her eyes were saying something else. I took it all and ran back to my car. Drove straight to the state police barracks, told them everything, showed them everything. They took it seriously. Turns out, there was a missing girl. Her name was Marissa, 23, reported missing 2 months earlier by her sister. She'd been last seen on a date, at that exact diner, with a man whose description matched Jake. But his name wasn't Jake. It was Zachary M. Carter. A fake profile, fake job, fake life. Real predator. They haven't caught him yet. He's gone. Vanished like he was never there. But sometimes I think about that waitress. How no one remembers her. No time card. No schedule. No name. Like she just showed up for me. Like she knew. I never go on dates alone anymore. I always call someone before. Always FaceTime first. Always send the location. Because I know how close I came. And because there's one last thing I never told the police. When I looked closer at that photo in the box, the one of the missing girl, she was sitting in the exact booth I had sat in. Same table, same ketchup bottle, and on the edge of the photo, barely visible, just above her shoulder, was a waitress, smiling, holding a coffee pot, and she looked exactly like mine. I should have known something was off when he picked the restaurant. It was this trendy but forgotten Italian place with flickering neon signs and fake ivy crawling up the outside like it was trying too hard to look romantic. Not a chain, but not quite local charm either. Like someone built it in the early 2000s with big dreams and then just stopped caring. We matched on Hinge. His name was Derek. Tall, beard that looked intentional, clean shoes, which I weirdly always check. And I'll admit, I was in a maybe I need to give people a chance phase. We messaged for a few days. Nothing weird. A little dry, if anything. He asked if I wanted to meet for dinner. I said yes. He made the reservation. He was already there when I arrived. That was the first flag. Not red, just beige. Same as the guy from the diner. Same type. Sitting alone with a water already half empty, like he'd been there a while. Like he wanted to watch me walk in. He stood when I got to the table, pulled out my chair, smiled with his whole face. No big deal, just noted. He was charming. That's what makes this worse. We ordered wine. He complimented my necklace, asked about my job. We laughed about the awkward silence after the server took our menus, both of us reaching for our drinks like it was a scene from a bad sitcom. He said, "I like how you carry yourself. You're calm." I laughed. I'm the least calm person I know. He smiled again, that easy kind of smile that makes you lower your guard. "Still, you've got this peaceful energy. It's rare." Then the food came. And somewhere between the second bite of my pasta and his third refill of water, he said it. Not dramatically, not in a drop the fork kind of way, just casual, like it was small talk. "You're my first date in a while," he said. I just got out of prison. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. "Oh," I said. "Wow, okay. I mean, thanks for telling me." He chuckled, wiped his mouth, took a sip of water. "You want to know what for, don't you?" I didn't answer. I didn't know what to say. But he leaned in like he was about to let me in on a secret. Then just said, "I'll tell you after dessert. Now here's where I need you to understand something. I'm not the kind of person who panics easily. I've had enough bad dates to know how to fake a stomachache or get a friend to call. I've got my escape plans preloaded. But something about the way he said it, not the words, the timing, the smile, the after dessert part, like it was supposed to be fun, like he was enjoying the tension. That's when I got scared. I laughed it off, said, "You can't do that. You can't just drop that and then make me wait." He shrugged. "I can. It's not dangerous or anything. Not anymore." "Not anymore?" I repeated. He raised his glass. "It's just part of my past. Doesn't define me." I forced a smile, excused myself to the bathroom. Inside the stall, I texted my friend Maya. Me. "PL's call me in 10. Make up an emergency." Maya. "Again? What now?" Me. "He said he just got out of prison. Won't say why until dessert." Maya. "Bitch, leave. Don't wait for cake." Me. "He's between me and the exit." Maya. "On it." I looked at myself in the mirror, straightened my face, smoothed my hair like that would somehow make me invisible, walked back out and slid into the booth. He smiled again. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," I said. "My friend's having a mini crisis, so I might have to leave soon." He nodded. "Totally fine. I'll make sure you get your dessert first." That line didn't sit right. Not the words. The way he said it. Maya called right on time. Crying. Panicked. Perfect. I answered and did the full, fake, concerned voice. Then said, "I'm so sorry. I have to go." He didn't stop me. But as I grabbed my purse, he looked at me with this calm, eerie expression. "You'll text me later though, right?" I nodded, too quickly. "Yeah, totally." And then he said something that made my skin crawl. "You're not like the others." I didn't sleep that night. It wasn't the worst date I'd ever been on. He didn't scream. He didn't follow me to my car. He didn't grab me or say anything overtly threatening. And that's what made it worse. He was calm. Too calm. Like he didn't need to rush anything. Like he already knew something I didn't. "You're not like the others." Those words looped in my head until sunrise. At around 7 a.m., I texted Maya again. "Me, can you help me find his last name?" Maya, "WTF? You're still thinking about this dude?" Me, "He said he just got out of prison. Won't say why. My gut's screaming." Maya's got a bit of a digital stalking streak. 2 X's, 1 restraining order, and a soft spot for online forensics. She had it within 10 minutes. His last name was Patterson. Derek Patterson. She even sent me the link. It was an archived local news story. One of those janky WordPress sites with too many ads and a weird green font. The headline stopped my breath cold. "Man arrested after allegedly holding woman hostage for 3 days." Underneath it, a photo. Him, smiling. Same beard, same eyes. The article said he'd met her online. Took her out once. She declined a second date. 3 days later, her roommate found her tied up in their apartment. Alive, but barely. They couldn't prove how he got in. She never saw him again after that first date. And there was no forced entry. I dropped my phone. Just let it fall off the couch and hit the floor like it was contaminated. He hadn't been convicted. That's the part that chilled me. Charges dropped. Insufficient evidence. And when I looked up court records, I found something even worse. He'd been arrested twice before that. Same pattern. Same MO. Same insufficient evidence. I didn't know what to do. I hadn't blocked him yet. A part of me wanted to see what he'd say. If he'd message me again. If he'd try to explain. And sure enough, around noon, a text came in. "Had a great time last night. Let's do dessert soon." I didn't respond. But it didn't stop there. Later that afternoon, another text. "Still thinking about that necklace. You've got good taste." The necklace. I'd tucked it into my sweater halfway through dinner. I hadn't mentioned it. Hadn't even realized it slipped back out. He was watching me. Closely. I blocked his number. Thought that would be it. But then, 2 days later, Maya called me. Not texting. Calling. She never calls. I answered. "Tell me he didn't get into your building," she said. "What?" "There's a picture. On the community page for your building's dog park. Someone posted it this morning. It's him." I opened the app. Scrolled through. There he was, standing at the fence. Not touching anything. Just watching. The caption said, "Anyone know this guy? Doesn't live here. Was standing outside the gate for like 15 minutes. Weird vibes." I called the leasing office. Filed a report. They said they'd look into it. Which is code for nothing. So I did the only thing I could do. I left. Packed a bag. Went to stay with Maya for a while. Slept with a baseball bat under the couch. Every time I walked outside, I checked for him. Every time a door creaked, I thought of him smiling over his pasta, saying, "I'll tell you after dessert." And that's where it ends. Sort of. Because nothing ever happened. Not directly. Not to me. But about a month later, I got a call. Unknown number. I ignored it. Then they left a voicemail. It was a detective. A woman. She said, "Miss, we found your name on a piece of paper during a search warrant. We'd like to ask a few questions about a man named Derek Patterson." I called back. She said they arrested him again. This time, it was worse. He'd taken a girl back to his place after dinner. She never made it out. Roommate reported her missing 48 hours later. Police found the apartment spotless, too spotless. Like someone had scrubbed it with intent. But he slipped. There was a drop of blood behind the headboard. Matched her DNA. They searched his phone, his computer, his storage unit. Found notebooks, lists of names, timestamps, a rating system. I was on it. Claire, calm energy, smart, didn't panic. 7.5 out of 10. Need to try again. I hung up. I've since changed my number, moved, got a different job, and I still don't know how close I came to being the next one. Maybe I was lucky. Maybe I was just the wrong puzzle piece for his plan. But I'll never forget the way he looked at me when I left that night. The kind of look you give a dish you didn't finish, but still might reheat later. The first thing Julian said to me was, "You still bite your nails when you're nervous." I froze with my hand halfway to my mouth at Café du Monde, where the beignets never stopped floating powdered sugar into the thick New Orleans air. We'd met on NOLA nights, a dating app for locals who knew better than to go to Bourbon Street. His profile showed a man with storm gray eyes and an easy smile, standing in front of a shotgun house I could have sworn I recognized. "Creepy opener," I said, forcing a laugh. My thumbnail bore the teeth marks of every bad date I'd ever had. Julian stirred his café au lait with methodical precision. Not creepy, observant. His voice carried the faintest Cajun lilt, like he'd learned English second to some older, darker language. "You also rub your left thumb along your fork when you're thinking hard, just like your mother did." The fork clattered from my fingers. My mother had been dead for 6 years. By the third beignet, which Julian didn't touch, just watched as the powdered sugar settled like snow on a coffin, he'd told me 3 impossible things. The exact pattern of the birthmark on my left thigh. The name of my childhood cat, Mr. Bubbles, who'd run away when I was 9. The way my mother used to hum La Vie en Rose while making gumbo. "Stop," I whispered. The cafe sounds had faded to a dull roar. "Did you know my family?" Julian's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Not exactly." He slid a Polaroid across the table. The photo showed my mother's kitchen. Current day. But my mother's house had burned down in 2018. "You're lying," I said, voice shaking. "This is some sick joke." Julian produced a folded recipe card from his pocket. The edges were stained with roux, the exact burnt umber shade my mother used to make. "Turn it over," he said softly. In my mother's looping handwriting. "For my Sophie, if you ever come home." The world tilted. That wasn't possible. The fire had taken everything. The house, the photos, the generations of recipes. "Where did you get this?" Julian stood abruptly, dropping a $20 bill on the table. "Come see for yourself." He rattled off an address in the 9th Ward, my mother's address. Then he leaned close, his breath smelling inexplicably of the chicory coffee my grandmother used to brew. "But don't come after dark," he whispered. "The walls get hungry at night." I shouldn't have gone. But at 3:17 p.m. the next day, broad daylight, I told myself, I stood shaking on the cracked sidewalk of my childhood street. The house stood whole, not rebuilt, unburned. The same peeling blue paint, the same creaky porch swing where Mom would shell peas. The same. I froze. The kitchen window glowed yellow, and through the lace curtains I saw a silhouette moving. Tall, male, stirring a pot. My hands shook so badly I dropped my phone twice before dialing my brother. "Maddie," I gasped when he answered. "You'll never believe..." "Soph?" His voice sounded strange. Are you at Mom's old place?" Ice flooded my veins. "How did you know?" A long pause. Then, so quiet I almost missed it. "Because Julian just called me. From inside the house." The line went dead. Through the window the silhouette raised a hand. Waved. 3 impossible things keep happening. My apartment smells like roux every night at 9:04 p.m. My recipe book keeps gaining new pages in my mother's handwriting. Sometimes when I wake up, my nails are crusted with powdered sugar. Last night, I found a Polaroid on my pillow. It shows me sleeping. Julian sits on the edge of the bed, stroking my hair. The timestamp says tomorrow. And in the corner, barely visible, the tip of something that might be a fang. The hostess at Les Ombres gave me that practiced smile rich people get when they're pretending not to judge you. "Your guest hasn't arrived yet, Mr. Whitmore. Would you like to wait at the bar?" I checked my phone again. 7:59 p.m. Cass had insisted on this exact reservation time at this absurdly expensive French place near the river. Our entire conversation on Elite Match had been oddly specific about details. Table by the northeast window. You'll order the duck confit. I'll have water. When I joked about her being psychic, she'd only replied, no, just particular. At 8:03, the door opened. Every head turned. Cass moved through the dining room like a glitch in reality, heads unconsciously tilting away as she passed, candlelight seeming to dim near her. She wore a navy blue dress that might have been stylish in the 1940s, and her dark hair was pulled back so tight it looked painful. "You're late," I said, trying to match her odd formality. Her lips twitched, not a smile. Something more like a muscle memory of one. "No, Ryan. The atomic clock in Boulder is running 4.2 seconds fast this month." The waiter appeared. Cass ordered water. Nothing else. Over the next hour, 3 disturbing things happened. The water glass Cass's water never diminished. No condensation formed. The ice cubes didn't melt. When I accidentally knocked it over, the liquid moved. Slowly, like glycerin. The missing bites. I'd swear on my life I ate the duck. But when the waiter cleared the plates, mine looked untouched. Cass's silverware was pristine. The other diners' people at nearby tables kept glancing at us, then immediately looking away like they'd been scolded. One woman dropped her fork when Cass spoke. "You feel it, don't you?" Cass asked suddenly. Her fingers rested beside her water glass, not quite touching it. "The way the air gets heavier when I speak?" I wiped my mouth. The napkin came away clean. "Are you some kind of performance artist?" Cass leaned forward. For the first time, I noticed her pupils were different sizes. "Tell me, Ryan, do you remember what you ordered for lunch on April 17th, 2018? A cold sweat broke across my back. Because suddenly, I did remember. A turkey sandwich from a deli that had closed years ago. The way the mustard had dripped onto my keyboard. How the human body replaces itself every 7 years, she interrupted. But memories, those stay, like stains. After dinner, had we eaten? I couldn't remember. Cass insisted on walking by the Chicago River. The night was unseasonably cold, our breath hanging in the air. Except Cass's didn't. "You're not real," I blurted out. Cass stopped beneath a bridge. The water below moved strangely, not flowing with the current, but pulsing, like something breathing beneath the surface. "Define real," she said. Then, without warning, "You'll die on a Tuesday." The world tilted. I knew it was true with bone-deep certainty. What? Cass turned her face up to the moonlight. For the first time I saw her neck, covered in thin, silvery scars that looked like autopsy stitches. "Most people don't notice," she murmured. "But you did. That's why I chose you." When I looked back at the river, the water was perfectly still. Cass was gone. 3 odd things keep happening since that night. My reflection blinks a half-second after I do. My bedside water glass is always full when I wake up. Every clock in my apartment runs 4.2 seconds fast. Last Tuesday, I almost got hit by a taxi. The driver swore he didn't see me. Just like the waiter at Les Ombres can't remember serving us. And when I checked my elite match messages, our entire conversation is gone. Except for one line, sent yesterday at 3:33 a.m. from an account that no longer exists. "Don't worry about the duck. You never really ate it." 8. I first saw Lily in the corner booth of Hollow Grounds, this hipster coffee shop near Powell's Books where the baristas took their pour-overs way too seriously. She stood out immediately, not just because of the vintage red dress that seemed 2 decades out of place, but because of how still she sat. Most people fidget, check their phones, or at least blink. Lily did none of those things. When I sat down across from her, after matching on Gloam, an app for those who appreciate the darker things, I noticed 3 strange details immediately. Her coffee was untouched, yet still steaming after 20 minutes. She smelled like old books and something metallic. When the overhead light hit her eyes just right, the pupils seemed wrong. "You're late," she said, voice barely above a whisper. I checked my watch. "It's 7:02. We said 7. 70037 to be exact. A smile that didn't reach her eyes. But I don't mind waiting for you, Ethan. The way she said it made my skin prickle, like she'd been waiting much longer than 2 minutes. The conversation started normally enough. Books, music, the eerie quiet of Portland's foggy mornings. But when I excused myself to the restroom, something made me glance at the mirrored wall behind her. My reflection stared back. Hers didn't. I froze mid-step, nearly knocking over a chair. The mirror showed me standing there like an idiot, the coffee shop behind me. But where Lily should have been, there was just empty space. When I returned to the table, she was examining her nails. See something interesting? I tried to play it cool. Just checking my hair. Lily laughed, a sound like dry leaves scraping pavement. Funny, you've never cared about your hair before. Not since the 3rd grade when Mrs. Hendricks called you Shaggy in front of the class. My blood turned to ice. That had happened, and I'd never told a soul. After 2 hours of increasingly unsettling conversation, she knew about my childhood nightmares, my grandmother's deathbed confession, even what I'd whispered to my dying golden retriever. I made my excuses. Lily didn't protest. She just nodded and said, "I'll walk you out." The night air smelled like rain and distant wildfires. Halfway to my car, Lily stopped beneath a flickering streetlight. "Look," she said suddenly, grabbing my wrist. Her grip was colder than the October air. "I need you to understand something." She stepped closer. The streetlight buzzed overhead. And in that moment, I saw it. When the light hit her just right, her shadow didn't match her movements. It was delayed, like an echo. "Don't trust reflections, Ethan," she whispered. "They lie." Then she was gone. Not walking away, just gone, like she'd never been there at all. I drove home in a daze. When I got to my apartment, I went straight to the bathroom mirror, half expecting to see Lily standing behind me, but it was just my reflection. Until I blinked. For one heartbeat, my reflection stayed with its eyes open, smiling, with teeth too sharp, pupils too wide. Then it was normal again. Now I keep all the mirrors covered. But sometimes, when I wake up at 3:07 a.m., always 3:07 exactly, I hear something scratching at the other side of the covered glass. And last night, the sheet started moving, like someone was tracing fingers down my arm. But I was alone in the bed. At least I think I was. I met Naomi on a rainy Thursday in October, the kind of night where the humidity clings to your skin like a second layer. We'd matched on Whisper, an app for people who preferred mystery over oversharing. Her profile was sparse, just a single photo of her standing under a street lamp, half her face in shadow, and a bio that read, "Tell me a secret, and I'll keep it." Our first date was at the Drowned Cat, a speakeasy-style bar hidden beneath an old bookstore. The place smelled like bourbon and damp wood, the kind of spot where time moves slower. Naomi was already there when I arrived, sitting at the far end of the bar with a glass of something dark. She wore a black dress that seemed to drink the light around her, and when she smiled, it didn't quite reach her eyes. "You're late," she said, not looking up. I checked my phone. By 2 minutes. 2 minutes and 17 seconds. She finally glanced at me, and something in her gaze made my stomach tighten. But who's counting? The conversation started normal enough. Jobs, hobbies, the weirdness of dating apps. But then, halfway through my second drink, she tilted her head and said, "You don't really like your job, do you?" I frowned. "I never said that." "You didn't have to." She swirled her drink. "You clench your jaw every time you mention your boss, and you just touched your left thumb to your index finger 3 times in the last minute. That's your tell. You do it when you're lying." I froze. She was right. I hated my job. But I'd never told anyone, not even my best friend. The bartender slid another drink toward Naomi, but she didn't touch it. Instead, she leaned in, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Do you believe in time loops, Daniel?" I laughed, but it came out strained. "Like in the movies? Number like this." She reached into her purse and slid a Polaroid across the bar. The photo showed me sitting at the exact stool I was on now, mid-laugh, my hand raised like I was waving at someone. But I hadn't moved. And the timestamp in the corner read 11:59 p.m., 2 hours from now. My throat went dry. What the hell is this? Naomi didn't answer. Instead, she checked her watch, an old silver thing with hands that didn't move. It's happening again, she murmured. Then louder. Don't order the steak. I blinked. What? The steak. You're about to order it. Don't. As if on cue, the bartender appeared. Ready to order? I opened my mouth, fully intending to ask for the ribeye, when Naomi's fingers dug into my wrist. Don't. I went with the salmon instead. Naomi exhaled, like she'd been holding her breath. Good. Then, without another word, she stood and walked toward the bathroom. She never came back. I waited 20 minutes before asking the bartender if he'd seen her. He gave me a weird look. Who? The woman I was sitting with. Black dress. Naomi? He shook his head. You've been alone all night, man. The Polaroid was still on the bar. I picked it up, my hands shaking. The image hadn't changed. There I was, frozen in a moment that hadn't happened yet. And in the background, barely visible in the shadows, was Naomi, watching. I left the bar in a daze. Outside, the rain had stopped, but the air felt heavier, like the world was holding its breath. My phone buzzed. A notification from Whisper. Naomi Cross has sent you a message. I opened it. You should have ordered the steak. Attached was another photo. This one showed me lying in a hospital bed, my face swollen beyond recognition. The timestamp, tomorrow. I never replied, but sometimes, when I'm alone at night, I hear a faint ticking, like an old watch counting down to something I don't want to see. I matched with Elise on Northern Nights during one of those late-night swiping sessions where you're half asleep but just lonely enough to keep scrolling. Her profile stood out, not because it was flashy, but because it felt real. No filtered sunset hikes, no cringy bios about adventures, just a candid shot of her grinning over a coffee cup, her green eyes crinkling at the corners like she was in on a joke nobody else got. We bonded fast over shared obsessions, true crime docs, the absurdity of pumpkin spice everything, and a mutual hatred for small talk. When she suggested meeting at the Rusty Lantern, a pub tucked near the foggy edges of Lake Champlain, I didn't hesitate. The place was all dim lighting and scarred wooden booths, the kind where conversations either died fast or spiraled into something too honest. Elise was already seated when I arrived, her fingers tracing the rim of a half-finished Merlot. She looked up, and that smile hit me all over again, warm, but with a sharpness underneath, like she'd already dissected me before I'd even sat down. The first red flag was subtle. You're from Montpellier, she said, not asking. Grew up near Elm Street. Your dad fixed motorcycles in that garage that always smelled like WD-40 and stale coffee. I laughed, assuming she'd stalked my socials. Creepy. You cyber-sleuthing me? She shrugged. Just good at reading people. But then came the things nobody could have found online. You had a nightmare for weeks after seeing Jurassic Park as a kid. You still can't sleep with the closet door open. My fingers tightened around my beer bottle. That was a fear I'd never admitted to anyone. Then quieter. You lied about how your dog died. The air left my lungs. Duke hadn't just passed away like I told people. He'd been hit by a car right in front of me. I'd carried his limp body home, my hands sticky with his blood. A memory so buried, I'd almost convinced myself it happened differently. Elise watched me, her head tilted like she was studying a bug under glass. You okay? You've got that look. What look? The one you get when you're trying not to cry. I forced a laugh, but my skin prickled. This wasn't just creepy, it was impossible. I hadn't posted about Duke in years. My childhood home wasn't on Google Maps. And yet, she knew. By the time our entrees arrived, her guesses had taken a darker turn. You still think about that hit and run, she murmured, swirling her wine. The way the woman's purse spilled open when she fell, lipstick rolling into the gutter. My fork slipped, clattering against the plate. That accident had haunted me for years, the way time had slowed as the blue sedan sped off, the metallic stench of blood mixing with rain. I'd never told anyone about the lipstick. Okay, what the hell? My voice came out too loud. A couple at the next booth glanced over. Did you know her? Were you there? Elise's expression didn't change. Number. But you were. The restaurant noise faded into a dull roar. My palms were slick against the table. This wasn't just stalking, this was something else. Something wrong. I made excuses, threw cash on the table, and practically bolted for the door. The parking lot was a black pit, the wind gnawing through my jacket. I'd almost reached my car when her voice cut through the dark. Liam, wait. She was suddenly right there, her fingers clamping around my wrist. Her skin was freezing, like she'd been standing in a walk-in freezer all night. You're in danger, she hissed. Her breath smelled faintly of copper. Don't take the highway home. Go Route 7. I wrenched free. Are you threatening me? Listen. Her voice dropped, urgent. At 11:17 p.m., a truck runs the light at Main and Elm. If you're there, it hits you driver's side. You don't walk away. A jolt of primal fear shot down my spine. Not because I believed her, but because she said it with the certainty of someone reading a weather forecast. I drove home in a haze, gripping the wheel too tight. Logic told me she was insane. But at 11:12 p.m., my hands turned the wheel onto Route 7 on their own. 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed. A news alert. Fatal crash at Main and Elm. Truck driver ran red light. 1 dead. The timestamp, 11:17 p.m. I never replied to Elise's last text. You're welcome. But sometimes, when my phone lights up with a Northern Nights notification, her profile picture stares back at me, smiling like she already knows what I'll do next.